I slammed the espresso machine off harder than I meant to, my hands shaking as I watched Emma through the kitchen window, her shirt pulled tight across a stomach that hadn't been there 4 months ago. She stood at the counter, laughing with a regular customer, her hand unconsciously resting on that unmistakable curve. My chest tightened. I'd built this cafe from nothing, scraped together every dollar I had, worked 18-hour days until my fingers bled and my feet screamed. And now my only employee, the one person who made this place run when I couldn't be everywhere at once, was hiding something that could destroy everything I'd worked for. "Sarah, you okay back there?" Emma called out, her voice cheerful, oblivious. I forced a smile and pushed through the swinging door. "Fine, just the machine acting up again." She nodded, turning back to bag up Mrs. Henderson's usual order of blueberry scones. I watched her move, efficient and graceful despite the obvious changes to her body. The way she'd started eating her meals here instead of taking them home. The way her husband John kept stopping by with that worried, protective look in his eyes. The way she'd asked for the afternoon off last week for what she vaguely called an appointment. The lunch rush died down around 2. Emma wiped down the last table while I counted the register, my mind racing. We lived in Texas, an at-will employment state. She could walk out tomorrow with no notice, and I'd have no recourse. Or worse, she'd have this baby and never come back, leaving me scrambling to find someone who could fill her shoes. Nobody could, though. I'd interviewed 12 people before her, and none of them had her work ethic, her warmth with customers, her ability to anticipate exactly what needed doing before I even asked. "Emma," I started, then stopped. She looked up from where she was restacking the pastry case. "Yeah?" "Nothing. Never mind." But it wasn't nothing. My wife Rachel had warned me last night when I'd mentioned my suspicions. "Don't you dare ask her," she'd said, pointing her fork at me across our dinner table. "That's exactly how you get sued. Wait for her to tell you." "What if she doesn't tell me until it's too late?" I'd argued. "What if she goes into labor and I have no backup plan?" "Then you deal with it like every other small business owner. You don't interrogate a woman about her body." Rachel was right. I knew she was right. But knowing and feeling were two different things when your entire livelihood depended on one person who seemed to be keeping a massive secret. Emma finished the pastry case and grabbed her apron strings to untie them. "Hey, would it be okay if I ate my sandwich now instead of taking it home? I'm starving." "Of course," I said automatically. She pulled out the turkey club I'd made for her earlier, and I watched, trying not to stare, as she tore into it like she hadn't eaten in days. 4 months ago, Emma would nibble at an apple during her shift and save the real meal for her family. Now she was on her second full sandwich by noon, and I'd caught her sneaking extra pickles from the jar when she thought I wasn't looking. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Marcus. "How's the cafe? Still drowning in work?" I typed back quickly. "Managing. Barely." He responded immediately. "Hire someone else then." If only it were that simple. Finding Emma had been a miracle. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for 11 years, raising 3 kids while her husband worked construction. When John recommended her, I'd been skeptical. What could someone with no recent work experience bring to a busy cafe? But she'd walked in for that interview with quiet confidence, answered every question thoughtfully, and within a week proved herself indispensable. She knew how to handle difficult customers with grace, could flip between making drinks and taking orders without missing a beat, and had even reorganized my entire supply system to be more efficient. Losing her would be catastrophic. Emma finished her sandwich and caught me watching. "What? You've been eating more lately," I blurted out before I could stop myself. Her face flushed slightly. "Yeah, I guess I've been more hungry. Is that a problem?" No, of course not." I backpedaled quickly. "I just noticed, that's all." She studied me for a moment, something unreadable crossing her face. Then she turned away. I should get back to work. The afternoon crawled by in uncomfortable silence. Every time I looked at Emma, questions burned in my throat. "Are you pregnant? When were you going to tell me? Do you even plan to come back after the baby?" but I swallowed them down, remembering Rachel's warning, remembering every article I'd ever read about employer rights and pregnancy discrimination. Around 4, John walked in. He was a big guy, over 6 feet with broad shoulders from years of construction work, but his face softened immediately when he saw Emma. She was restocking the napkin dispensers, and he walked right up to her, placing a gentle hand on the small of her back. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. "I am fine," she replied, but I caught the edge in her voice. "Did you schedule that follow-up appointment?" John. Emma's tone turned sharp. "Not here." He glanced at me, then back at her. "Right, sorry, I just worry." "I know, but I'm fine, really." He kissed her forehead and ordered a black coffee. I made it silently, hyper-aware of their whispered conversation at the counter. I caught fragments. The doctor said, "Need to be careful. I know what I'm doing." When John left, Emma avoided my eyes completely. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Rachel snored softly beside me. My mind played through scenarios, each one worse than the last. Emma going into labor during the morning rush. Emma deciding motherhood was too much and quitting without notice. Emma having complications and being out for months. I'd have to close the cafe or work every single day myself, which would mean 16-hour shifts, no days off, no time with Rachel, no life beyond steaming milk and toasting bagels. I'd built something beautiful, and it was all balanced precariously on one tiny woman who was clearly hiding something. The next morning, Emma called in sick. It was the first time she'd missed a shift in the 18 months she'd worked for me. I handled the morning rush alone, burning myself twice on the espresso machine and mixing 3 orders. By noon, I was exhausted and irritated. "You look like death," Rachel said when she stopped by with lunch. "Thanks," I accepted the sandwich gratefully. "Emma called in sick." And nothing. She never gets sick." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "People get sick, Sarah, even perfect employees." "You think she's pregnant, don't you?" My wife sighed. "I think it doesn't matter what I think. You need to let her tell you in her own time." What if there is no own time? What if she just shows up one day, hands me her apron, and says she's done? "Then you'll figure it out. You always do." But I didn't want to just figure it out. I wanted to plan, to prepare, to control the situation before it controlled me. Emma came back the next day looking pale but determined. She worked through her entire shift without complaint, but I noticed her sitting down more often, one hand pressed to her stomach when she thought I wasn't watching. Around 3, her father came in. I'd seen him a few times before, a stern-looking man in his 60s with Emma's same green eyes. He ordered a coffee and waited until there were no other customers before speaking. "How's she doing?" he asked me directly. I blinked. "Emma? She's great. Good worker." He studied me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "She tell you yet?" My heart jumped. "Tell me what?" He seemed to realize he'd said too much. "Nothing. Never mind. Just take care of her, all right? She's been through enough." Through enough of what? But he just shook his head, took his coffee, and left. I found Emma in the back, prepping sandwich ingredients for tomorrow. What was that about? What was what about? She didn't look up from the tomatoes she was slicing. "Your dad." He said, "You've been through enough." Through enough of what, Emma? Her knife stilled. He shouldn't have said anything. But he did. So what's going on? She finally looked at me, and there were tears in her eyes. "Can we please not do this right now?" The vulnerability in her voice stopped me cold. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than I'd realized. Bigger than just a pregnancy and maternity leave. Something that made her cry just thinking about it. "Okay," I said softly. "Okay, we won't talk about it." But as the days turned into weeks, my anxiety grew. Emma's stomach became more pronounced. She started wearing looser shirts, but there was no hiding it anymore. Customers were starting to notice too. I overheard Miss Henderson whispered to her friend, "That girl is definitely expecting." One morning, I found Emma in the bathroom, throwing up. She emerged looking mortified, her face flushed, and immediately started apologizing. "I'm so sorry. It's been better lately, but sometimes mornings are still rough." Morning sickness, I said flatly. She froze. What? You're pregnant. It's obvious, Emma. You've been hiding it for months now, and I need to know what your plans are. The words came out harsher than I intended. Emma's face crumpled, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I was going to tell you. I swear I was. I didn't know how. How long have you known? Since about 4 months ago. But Sarah, you have to understand, it's complicated. Complicated how? You're having a baby. That's not complicated. What's complicated is running a business when your only employee is about to go on maternity leave and didn't bother to mention it. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You're right. You're absolutely right. I should have told you sooner. I was scared. Scared of what? That I'd fire you? I wouldn't do that. No, not that. Scared that something would go wrong again. Again? The word hung in the air between us like smoke. What do you mean, again? I asked more gently. Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Can we talk after close, please? I promise I'll explain everything. But right now, I need to get through this shift without falling apart completely. I wanted to push, to demand answers immediately, but the look on her face stopped me. Okay, after close. The rest of the day dragged by in tense silence. Emma worked mechanically, her usual warmth with customers replaced by a brittle politeness. I caught her wiping tears several times, and guilt gnawed at me. I'd made her cry. I'd pushed too hard. But I'd also needed to know, hadn't I? I had a business to run. At 6, I flipped the sign to closed and locked the door. Emma sat at one of the tables, her hands folded in front of her, looking smaller than ever. I sat across from her and waited. I'm about 20 weeks along, she started quietly. I found out right after New Year's. And I know I should have told you right away, but I couldn't. Not after last time. Last time? She took a shaky breath. 2 years ago, I got pregnant. It was a surprise. We weren't planning on a 4th, but we were excited. I was 12 weeks along when I started bleeding. I lost the baby, and it destroyed me for a while. The kids didn't understand why I was so sad. John tried to help, but he was grieving too. It took months before I felt like myself again. My throat tightened. Emma, I'm so sorry. When I found out I was pregnant this time, I was terrified. I didn't want to tell anyone, didn't want to hope, didn't want to get attached in case it happened again. The doctor said everything looks good this time, but I keep waiting for something to go wrong. And I knew I needed to tell you. I did, but every time I tried, the words wouldn't come. I was so afraid that if I said it out loud, I'd jinx it somehow. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I'm sorry I put you in this position. I know it's not fair to you or the business. I couldn't face losing another baby. And I'm barely holding it together as it is. I felt like the worst person in the world. Here I'd been, worried about staffing and schedules, while Emma was carrying the weight of a previous loss and the fear that this pregnancy might end the same way. When are you due? I asked softly. Early September. And yes, I plan to take some time off after the baby's born, but I want to come back. I love this job, Sarah. It's the first time in over a decade I've had something that's just mine, you know? Not mom stuff or wife stuff, but something I'm good at because I work hard at it. I don't want to lose that. You won't, I said firmly. We'll figure it out. I'll hire temporary help for while you're out, and when you're ready to come back, your job will be here waiting. She let out a sob of relief. Really? Really. I'm sorry I pushed you before you were ready. I was so caught up in my own worries that I didn't think about what you might be going through. Emma stood up and, before I could react, wrapped me in a tight hug. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hugged her back, feeling the curve of her stomach press against me. There was a person in there. A whole tiny person that Emma was growing while slinging coffee drinks and making sandwiches. The responsibility of that, combined with the fear from her previous loss, must have been overwhelming. We pulled apart, both of us sniffling and wiping our eyes. "So," I said, trying to lighten the mood, "boy or girl?" A genuine smile broke across her face, the first real one I'd seen in weeks. "Girl, we're naming her Claire." "That's beautiful." "I wanted to tell you so many times," Emma continued, "especially when you started making those comments about me eating more. I knew you'd noticed the weight gain, and I felt so guilty keeping it secret, but I just wasn't ready." "Understand. And for what it's worth, you don't look like you've gained weight. Just look pregnant." She laughed, a sound of pure relief. "I feel huge, but the doctor says I'm measuring perfectly. She's healthy, growing right on track. Every appointment, I hold my breath, waiting for bad news. And every time they tell me everything's fine, I can barely believe it." "Have you thought about when you want to start maternity leave?" "I'd like to work as close to my due date as possible, honestly. Staying busy helps keep my mind off worrying. But I'll need at least 8 weeks after she's born, maybe more, depending on how the delivery goes." "That's completely reasonable. I'll start looking for temporary help next week. Maybe I can find a college student looking for summer work." Emma nodded. "And I can help train them before I leave, make sure they know all the systems." We talked through logistics until the sky outside darkened completely. By the time Emma left, a weight had lifted from both of us. She'd finally told her secret, and I finally understood why she'd kept it so long. Rachel was already in bed when I got home, but she woke up when I came in. "How'd it go?" I filled her in on everything: Emma's previous miscarriage, her fear, her plans to come back after the baby. "See," Rachel said sleepily, "I told you she'd tell you when she was ready." "You were right. I should have trusted that." "Yes, you should have. Now come to bed. You've been stressed for weeks over this." I climbed under the covers, feeling lighter than I had in months. The cafe would survive Emma's maternity leave. We'd find someone to cover her shifts, and when she came back, things would return to normal. Maybe better than normal, because now there were no more secrets between us. The next few weeks fell into an easier rhythm. Emma was visibly relieved to have everything out in the open. She talked freely about her pregnancy, showed me ultrasound pictures, complained about her swollen feet. I started interviewing potential temporary workers, looking for someone reliable who could learn quickly. I found a college sophomore named Bree who was home for the summer and needed a job. She was eager to learn, showed up on time, and had previous food service experience. Not as naturally gifted as Emma, but she could hold down the fort for a few weeks. Emma trained her thoroughly, writing detailed notes about every process, every regular customer's preferences, every quirk of the equipment. I watched them work together, Emma's natural teaching ability shining through as she patiently explained things multiple times until Bree got them right. "You're really good at this," I told Emma one afternoon. "The teaching thing. Have you ever thought about becoming a trainer or manager somewhere?" She laughed. "At a cafe? I don't think there's much call for that." "I'm serious. You're patient, clear, thorough. Those are valuable skills." She ducked her head, looking pleased. "Thanks. Honestly, I never thought of myself as particularly skilled at anything besides taking care of kids. This job has been good for my confidence." By mid-August, Emma was enormous. She moved slower, took more breaks, but refused to stop working. "If I sit at home, I'll just worry," she insisted. "At least here, I'm distracted." Then, on August 23rd, 3 weeks before her due date, Emma's water broke right in the middle of the lunch rush. One minute, she was handing a customer their latte. The next, she was standing in a puddle, her face frozen in shock. "Oh no," she whispered. "Oh no, no, no. It's too early." I immediately called John while guiding Emma to a chair. "It's okay. You're okay. 3 weeks early isn't that uncommon, right? That's still full term." 37 weeks is technically full term, she said, but her voice shook. "But Claire should have 3 more weeks. What if something's wrong? What if she's not ready?" "Emma, breathe. You need to breathe." John arrived in record time, nearly taking out the door in his haste. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. Let's get you to the hospital." But the lunch rush, Emma protested weakly. Sarah can't handle it alone. I'll be fine, I assured her. Bree's coming in at 2 anyway. You focus on having a healthy baby. John practically carried her to his truck. I watched them drive away, Emma's terrified face visible through the passenger window, and sent up a silent prayer that everything would be okay. The next 12 hours were agony. I kept checking my phone between customers, waiting for news. Bree arrived and noticed my distraction immediately. Is everything okay? Emma went into labor, 3 weeks early. Oh, wow. I'm sure she'll be fine, though, right? I hope so. We made it through the afternoon and evening rush. I sent Bree home at 8 and stayed to clean up alone, my phone constantly in my hand. Finally, at 9:30, a text came through from John's number. It's Emma. Claire is here, 6 pounds 4 ounces, healthy and perfect. I can't believe it. She's really here and she's okay. I sat down right there on the cafe floor and cried. Relief, joy, exhaustion, all of it hitting me at once. Emma had her baby. Claire was healthy. Everything turned out okay. The next few weeks were chaos. Bree and I managed the cafe together, splitting shifts and figuring out a system. She was capable, but not Emma. Nobody was Emma. And I counted down the days until my star employee could return. Emma sent pictures almost daily. Claire with her tiny fist wrapped around Emma's finger. Claire sleeping in her father's arms. Claire with her 3 older siblings, all of them gazing at her with wonder. She's beautiful, I texted back every time, and she was. 8 weeks later, Emma walked back into the cafe with Claire strapped to her chest in a baby carrier. She looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes with newborn territory, but also radiant. I miss this place, she announced. We missed you too. I came around the counter to peek at Claire, who was sleeping peacefully, her tiny rosebud mouth slightly open. She's even more beautiful in person. She is, isn't she? Emma's voice held pure love. And so far, she's been pretty good about sleeping. John's taking paternity leave next month, so I can come back full-time. No rush, I said. Seriously, if you need more time. I don't. I love being a mom, but I also love being here. I need both to feel like myself. And just like that, things slowly returned to normal. Emma came back gradually, first just a few shifts a week with Claire in tow, then more as John's schedule allowed. Bree stayed on part-time, giving us extra coverage and allowing Emma more flexibility. The cafe not only survived, but thrived. Customers loved seeing baby Claire, and Emma's return brought back the warm, efficient service they'd missed. One afternoon in late October, Emma was making a latte while Claire napped in a portable crib we'd set up in the back office. She caught me watching her and smiled. What? She asked. I'm just glad you're here, and I'm sorry again for how I handled everything before. I was so focused on the business that I forgot about the person. You apologized already, like 5 times. It's okay, Sarah. Really. I get it. You were scared of losing your only employee, and I was scared of losing my baby. We were both just trying to protect what mattered most to us. Still, I could have been more understanding. And I could have been more communicative. But we figured it out, and everything worked out okay. Better than okay. She glanced toward the back office where Claire slept. I have a healthy daughter, a job I love, and a boss who let me bring my infant to work. I'm pretty lucky. We're both lucky, I corrected, because it was true. I'd spent so much time worrying about what I might lose that I'd almost ruined what I had. Emma wasn't just an employee. She was a person with fears and dreams and a complicated life beyond these cafe walls. Remembering that, honoring that, made me not just a better boss, but a better person. Later that evening, after we'd closed and Emma had gone home, I thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the secrets, the eventual honesty, and the relief when it all worked out. Building a business was hard, but building relationships, real ones based on trust and mutual respect, that was even harder and infinitely more valuable. My phone buzzed. A message from Emma. Thank you for everything. I mean it. I typed back, thank you for coming back. The cafe isn't the same without you. 3 dots appeared. Then, see you tomorrow, boss. I locked up the cafe, turned off the lights, and headed home to Rachel, feeling grateful for the lesson I'd learned. Sometimes the scariest thing is not knowing, and sometimes the answer is simply to wait, to trust, and to remember that we're all just doing our best with the complicated, messy, beautiful lives we've been given. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have handled this situation differently if you were in my position?